We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
You are listening to The Underground Marketing Conspiracy, a secret ritual where entrepreneurs acquire highly classified and confidential business knowledge that the top 1% of income earners don't want you to know. And now, your host, Maddie Milligan.
What is going on, my fellow conspirator? Welcome to another episode of The Underground Marketing Conspiracy. Ooh. So today, the new Star Wars movie comes out. Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. And there's been a lot of hype around this movie. And personally, I'm not going to lie, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. If they come out with anything, I'm probably going to watch it at some point, and I'm going to be excited about this. And this is because when I originally saw Star Wars A New Hope, when I was probably in grade 5 or 6, I just fell in love with it. I liked everything about it. And since then, I've always rewatched all their movies, and I like all the different elements of the movies, which is one of the main things, right? It's not just the acting, which is usually subpar anyways, whether it's the CGI and the visual effects that they're using, whether it's the music in the movie, the editing, the sound editing. I just like everything about these movies, and there's definitely some bad ones that have been created by George Lucas in the past, but what I really want to talk about is the marketing behind this new movie, because it seems like there's been so much hype leading up to this one movie. After Episode 8, The Last Jedi, which was not necessarily the best movie in my opinion. In fact, I think it's probably the worst, if not the second worst, Star Wars movie that exists in the franchise. And there's many reasons. I just watched it with one of my friends the other night, and there's a lot of loopholes in logic in that movie, and there's a lot of character, not really great character development. It just seems like very forced in some cases, but I'm very excited about the new one because honestly, I'm sure it can't be as bad as Episode 8. But because Episode 8 had so many issues, and because I think social media has become so popular, people have just voiced their opinions about that movie so in depth, and there's been millions and millions of videos created on just YouTube alone about this new movie that's coming out today. And it's been very strange in some cases because there's haters and there's naysayers and there's people that are talking about how great it is. But the idea behind everything is that Star Wars is so huge that it doesn't really matter what they do. And keep in mind, it is a business, right? Owned by Disney, because they bought Star Wars, I think, in 2012 or 2013 from George Lucas, and they bought all of his assets. And essentially, it's just this big hype machine, right? So for the last 18 months or so since they came out with Solo, all you've really heard about is, will this new movie, The Rise of Skywalker, be any good? But it doesn't necessarily matter anymore, because all that matters is how much money they're going to make. And based on the fact that my friend who bought tickets for us to see it tomorrow with a group of friends, the fact that they're sold out in that one theater and it's been hard to come by, it just shows that it's going to be successful financially. It doesn't really matter if it's a good movie or not. It's still going to make money, and it's still going to fund future Star Wars projects, which is awesome in my opinion. And when you think about this, again, Star Wars, the whole idea of Lucasfilm or Disney is that they need to make money, right? But they're just so good at building hype. And one good thing in terms of storytelling that George Lucas was really good at, and I'm not even sure it was him, I'm sure it was his writers, is he was really good at these cliffhangers at the end of movies. This is why I loved Empire Strikes Back so much, because he left it on a cliffhanger where, and spoiler alert, Vader tells Luke that he's his father and then chops off his hand, and then Luke escapes somehow. And I just thought that that was very unique, right? And then basically Han Solo was also encased in frozen kryptonite, or carbonite, sorry. And basically there were these cliffhangers where it's like, wow, how is everything going to come about very well? And you probably saw this as well in the recent Avengers movies. Avengers Infinity War left on a huge cliffhanger, and it really led into the next one. I find though with this episode, it's like there wasn't really any cliffhangers at the end of episode 8 that led into episode 9. The real thing has just been like, wow, like, will episode 9 be worse or better than episode 8? And how are they going to finish off this franchise and even the end of this saga, right? Because this is episode 9 from episode 1 to 9. So this is basically the last one that's going to end everything, and then they're going to apparently restart and do other trilogies, or maybe they're going to end the trilogy format, or my friend was telling me maybe they'll start episode 10 just to really, I guess, close a lot of the story threads that probably won't be able to be wrapped up in this movie. Honestly, though, I have very low expectations coming into this movie, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but honestly, I think it is, because it's like, if it turns out it's not that great, I'll be like, it was what I expected. But if it turns out to be pretty good, whatever, like, I'll be like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. But again, I don't view this as just like, oh, the story was bad. I view many different criteria for if it's a good or a bad movie. The writing is one thing, very good, deep characters as well. Very good story arcs and character arcs are some things that I look at. But then the other things, right? Like how are the visual effects? How is the music in this movie? It's always John Williams too, so it's always a pleasure to hear him score these movies regardless. So that's one thing you can appreciate about these movies. People can hate on episodes 7 and 8 a lot, but I really enjoy Rey's theme, to be honest, because with these movies, I like to sometimes download a lot of movie scores and just listen to them while I work, because I have trouble listening to music with people talking or singing in it or rapping. And when I just want to hear instruments, again, it kind of sparks my creativity and just allows me to create things a lot better. But there's many different things you need to judge a movie on, right? Don't just judge it on the opinions of other people as well. Just be like, oh, I heard that it was not good. It's something where you really need to see it yourself. And if you're not a movie fan, I mean, I don't know how you could be a marketer or be a business owner and not be like a movie fan, because that's, for me, is something where if I'm ever stuck, I'll just go out and see a movie, and it really just gets me unstuck in a lot of cases. But with this new Star Wars movie, the marketing has been pretty crazy. I've seen ads now for a couple of months, and then what they do is you see them interviewing all the actors leading up to everything, the launch of everything. And I heard they actually didn't let George Lucas into the theater, which was kind of weird for episode 9. And there's been all sorts of things I've heard about leading up to this launch as well, where apparently they only had the final version of the movie a few weeks ago, because for months and months and months they were doing reshoots of the movie because fans who had screened the movie didn't like the ending, so they kept changing things, and they called in Lucas to shoot a different ending, and I don't know if they went with his or not, but there's been all sorts of behind the scenes drama that I'm sure has really just created that buzz and that hype leading up to this, which is, again, why I think it's going to be a financially successful movie. In terms of will the audience like it or not, I, again, have very low expectations for that. But I would think about this with your marketing campaigns too, right? And in a lot of cases, I'm sure this has been done intelligently by marketers within Disney, where they're seeding a lot of this stuff, right? They're trying to plant this stuff just so at least it's talked about and it's at the front of people's minds, so that when the movie does drop, people are actually going to go and see the movie itself. So if you're thinking about this, I've seen some documentary funnels I've hacked in the past, and they're really good at doing this, right? They're really good at getting people talking about the problem first, and then eventually it leads to some sort of documentary launch. There was this one that I remember hearing about at Funnel Hacking Live in 2018. It was The Truth About Cancer, and that's a great cause. I have lost a lot of friends to cancer. I lost my father to cancer. So this is something where I was like, oh, this is actually a good cause. Like, how do they market themselves? And they basically build the hype up to their documentary movie. So it's like, hey, you must tune in for these 7 days every single day at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. and basically to learn more about this, right? And they would interview authorities within the cancer treatment community, and essentially what would happen is you'd show up every single day, and then at the end of the 7 days, they pitch you on owning the DVD sets or the digital versions. And there's like the gold digital version, and there's the platinum one with the discs, and then a lot of other information. And a lot of the proceeds as well go to help find a cure for cancer. So that's one where it's a cause. But again, they build up that hype leading up to everything beforehand too. They would go out and interview other people in the health community and just get them to shout out that. And this is kind of like influencer marketing, I guess, but a more sophisticated version, I would say, of this. But it's very similar to what they do with the Star Wars movies, where again, they basically, you'll see ads a few months before. And one thing Star Wars and Disney has been good at is they actually have launches for their trailers now, right? So they'll announce the date that they're going to drop the trailer, and that starts the pre-buzz, right? What that does too is when they drop that trailer, a lot of people who have these big movie review channels on YouTube, or just they react to these movies, they then create these videos within minutes, right? It's like it drops, they watch it as soon as it drops, and then they're creating that reaction video at the same time. Then all they need to do is upload that video to YouTube. And to be honest, I've thought a lot about eventually creating a movie review channel, but I think one of my friends is a lot better at doing that stuff, so it might be something we partner in the future on doing. But for now, again, I'm really just focused on this marketing podcast. But after they do those reaction videos, then again, then Disney, you'll see that they start doing all sorts of billboard ads, and I've seen some ads on buses over the last couple of weeks as well. And they're smart too, because they have it this Christmas weekend, and Star Wars really has taken this Christmas weekend and owned it. Last year was Aquaman, and that's because for whatever reason Disney decided to drop that Solo movie, which was in April or May of 2018, when it should have been in December. It would have competed directly with Aquaman. So Aquaman basically took a lot of that market share as this kind of Christmas superhero movie. But this year it's obviously Star Wars. Like, Star Wars is absolutely going to dominate. And again, if you think about this, Disney's been planting seeds for years for this one event, all the culmination of everything. It seems like the writers didn't have a plan for the story arc for this latest trilogy. But again, all that really matters is how much money it's going to make, right? And Disney has also recently launched this, I think it's Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, where it's this in-person place where you can go inside the Millennium Falcon, and they have all sorts of different Star Wars themed things. It's basically just mini Star Wars city that you can visit at Disney World or Disneyland, one of the two. But everything leads to selling other things, right? And obviously Disney sells merchandise as well, so that's where they make tons and tons of money, right? They have these products manufactured very inexpensively, and then they sell them with ridiculous markups. So that's really how I would break down how Star Wars marketing works, right? How they actually make money off of these movies, because those movies, right, they cost a lot to make, especially when you're doing research, when you reshoots, when you're hiring A-list and B-list actors. That stuff gets very expensive. When you look at the end in the credits too, the amount of people in those, like, these movies cost so much to make. And then again, their ultimate goal, I believe, is to break even with the initial movie itself, and then they just make profit off of selling all the merchandise and getting people to actually visit Disney to the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and really just all that other stuff, right? I think that's ultimately their goal, but these movies still make a ton, right? They usually want to break even in that first weekend, and then everything after is pure profit. Hope you enjoyed today's episode where I talked about Star Wars marketing. If you did, I would consider subscribing wherever you are listening to this to, and maybe you want to share this with a friend who runs a business or works in marketing. They might find something like this very useful. My name is Matty Milligan, and I will see you next time on another episode of The Underground Marketing Conspiracy. Woo!